designating safe zones for Palestinians to seek refuge, and then bombing these, depriving Palestinians in Gaza of basic needs: food, water, healthcare, fuel, sanitation, and communications.
They receive orders from their superiors to go out and find 2 or 3 homes every night, break down the doors at 2 o'clock in the morning, go inside, turn everything upside down, humiliate the parents, and scare the children out of their mind, and then leave.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. A stunning day at the International Court of Justice. Israeli apartheid thought they had the game rigged. With Biden and the empire behind it, they rendered the United Nations impotent. Same with the International Criminal Court. But they didn't consider the International Court of Justice. South Africa made its complaint of genocide against Israel, and within weeks, the first hearing was held. Here's 8 minutes.
Together with the forced displacement, Israel's conduct has been deliberately calculated to cause widespread hunger, dehydration, and starvation. Israel's campaign has pushed Gazans to the brink of famine. An unprecedented 93% of the population in Gaza is facing crisis levels of hunger. Of all the people in the world currently suffering catastrophic hunger, more than 80% are in Gaza. The situation is such that the experts are now predicting that more Palestinians in Gaza may die from starvation and disease than airstrikes. And yet Israel continues to impede the effective delivery of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians, not only refusing to allow sufficient aid in, but removing the ability to distribute it through constant bombardment and obstruction. Just 3 days ago, on 8 January, a planned mission by UN agencies to deliver urgent medical supplies and vital fuel to a hospital and medical supply center was denied by Israeli authorities. This marked the 5th denial of a mission to the center since 26 December, leaving 5 hospitals in northern Gaza without access to life-saving medical supplies and equipment. Aid trucks that are allowed in are seized upon by the hungry. What is provided is simply not enough. Madam President, members of the court, this is an image of an aid truck arriving in Gaza. Third, Israel has deliberately inflicted conditions in which Palestinians in Gaza are denied adequate shelter, clothes, or sanitation. For weeks, there have been acute shortages of clothes, bedding, blankets, and critical non-food items. Clean water is all but gone, leaving far below the amount required to safely drink, clean, and cook. Accordingly, the WHO has stated that Gaza is experiencing soaring rates of infectious disease outbreaks. Cases of diarrhea in children under 5 years of age have increased 2,000% since hostilities began. When combined and left untreated, malnutrition and disease create a deadly cycle. The fourth genocidal act under Article 2B is Israel's military assault on Gaza's healthcare system, which renders life unsustainable. Even by 7 December, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to health noted that the healthcare of infrastructure in the Gaza Strip has been completely obliterated. Those wounded by Israel in Gaza are being deprived of life-saving medical care. Gaza's healthcare system, already crippled by years of blockade and prior attacks by Israel, is unable to cope with the sheer scale of the injuries. Finally, the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls has pointed to acts committed by Israel that would fall under the fourth category of genocidal acts in Article 2D of the Convention. On 22 November, she expressly warned the following: the reproductive violence inflicted by Israel on Palestinian women, newborn babies, infants, and children could be qualified as acts of genocide under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, including imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group. Israel is blocking the delivery of life-saving aid, including essential medical kits for delivering babies, in circumstances where an estimated 180 women are giving birth in Gaza each day. Of these 180 women, the WHO warns that 15% are likely to experience pregnancy or birth-related complications and need additional medical care. That care is simply not available. In sum, Madam President, all of these acts, individually and collectively, form a calculated pattern of conduct by Israel, indicating a genocidal intent. This intent is evident from Israel's conduct in specially targeting Palestinians living in Gaza, using weaponry that causes large-scale homicidal destruction, as well as targeted sniping of civilians, designating safe zones for Palestinians to seek refuge, and then bombing these, depriving Palestinians in Gaza of basic needs: food, water, healthcare, fuel, sanitation, and communications, destroying social infrastructure, homes, schools, mosques, churches, hospitals, and killing, seriously injuring, and leaving large numbers of children orphaned. Genocides are never declared in advance, but this court has the benefit of the past 13 weeks of evidence that shows incontrovertibly a pattern of conduct and related intention that justifies a plausible claim of genocidal acts. In the Gambia-Myanmar case, this court did not hesitate to impose provisional measures in relation to allegations that Myanmar was committing genocidal acts against the Rohingya within the Rakhine state. The facts before the court today are sadly even more stark, and like the Gambia-Myanmar case, deserve and demand this court's intervention. Every day, there is mounting irreparable loss of life, property, dignity, and humanity for the Palestinian people. Our news feeds show graphic images of suffering that has become unbearable to watch. Nothing will stop the suffering except an order from this court. Without an indication of provisional measures, the atrocities will continue, with the Israeli Defense Force indicating that it intends pursuing this course of action for at least a year.
The Israeli newspaper Haaretz reports that Israel's foreign ministry has responded to South Africa's arguments made at the court by saying that the court functions as, quote, the legal arm of the Hamas terrorist organization, unquote, and called its lawyers, quote, Hamas representatives, unquote. The utter gall. This line of slander may work its magic with Biden and Trump's lapdogs in Congress, but the world is quite sick of this first genocide shown in real time. And in Haaretz, an excellent article by Dalia Scheidlin explaining to Israelis the obvious, how the Holocaust hasn't been the only genocide, and how any nation can fall into the pit and launch mass murder. In her words, anyone can commit terrible things. We link to it in the archives of thestruggle.org. At the UN Security Council, several score rabbis demanded a ceasefire.
As a granddaughter of 3 Holocaust survivors whose entire families were murdered, saving succeeding generations from war feels personal. We are here at the UN in prayer and determination to support the UN to act for immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza and to demand that the US gets out of the way of the UN taking urgent action to save lives. The United Nations General Assembly already voted with an overwhelming majority for ceasefire. But the United States is thwarting the efforts of the Security Council to take meaningful action to realize ceasefire. The US is standing in the way of the international community taking action to save lives. We are here to remind the Biden administration, the world says, ceasefire now! We are here because the UN is the appropriate place for meaningful action for ceasefire and accountability for Israel's war crimes. We are here to encourage all member states to reaffirm and recommit the goals of the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, offering not just words of solidarity with Palestinians, but meaningful action to save lives. We rise, humbly hearted, rise, won't be divided, rise, with spirit to guide us, rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here, in hope, in prayer, we're right here, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here, in hope, in prayer, we're right here, we rise.
Eventually, UN security forced them to leave.
Safely text the text of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the text of Jewish tradition reflect the basis of our call for ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
Now, from Little Yemen, a section in the Bronx in New York City, demonstrators made a demand for a ceasefire and a repudiation of their pro-Zionist Member of Congress Richie Torres.
Sisters in Yemen who have been starved, who have been bombed, who have been killed, have taken up in their own hands to resist in support of their brothers and sisters in Palestine.
Justice is our demand. No peace.
And what do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? We need to shut down every single borough. We need to take over the streets. We need to mobilize by the thousands and thousands until they get it. We will make them get it. Don't underestimate your role. You live in the United States of America. New York State is the state that gives the most amount of money to Israel than any other of the 50 states. You, me, all of us here, we are contributing to the killing of our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in Yemen and everywhere else the United States wages these wars along with Israel. If we don't get it, if Gaza doesn't get it, if Jenin doesn't get it, if Tulkarm doesn't get it, if Al-Quds doesn't get it, in Yemen, they have millions and millions and millions of people filling the streets. And the fact that in so many countries around the world where they are having their own problems, where they don't have the level of freedom of speech that we have here, where they don't have the resources and the businesses and the communities that we have here, they are shutting down these countries for Palestine. Where is our action, brothers and sisters? We need to go much harder. They want to take over. They want to build luxury seafront hotels. They want to kick us off our land. All brothers and sisters, this is your test on earth. What are you going to do with your voice? What are you going to do with your time? What are you going to do with your money? Are you going to watch 11,000 Palestinian kids being killed on your cell phones and think it's enough to press share? No. Richie Torres, you can hide. We can do it genocide.
In South Carolina, Biden's string of cliches was interrupted by protesters with a demand.
If you really care about the lives lost here, you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire!
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
I assume the young man holding up his hands, a la Michael Brown, was hoping he wouldn't be shot by Secret Service. In some ways, the national corporate media is getting more honest about the genocide. But here in Connecticut, we're still behind. I talked about this with Faisal Saleh. Here's parts of the interview. I'll be speaking to Faisal Saleh. He's Palestinian American, a retired businessman, and founder of the Palestine Museum US, which is located in Woodbridge, Connecticut. The museum, which was established in 2018, was the first Palestinian museum in the Americas. It has 6,500 feet of exhibit space, and its mission is to tell the Palestinian story through works of art. Good afternoon, Faisal.
Good afternoon to you, Stan.
We're not going to talk about art so much as the corporate media in Connecticut and its coverage of Israel's warfare against Palestinians, particularly those in Gaza.
It is obvious to me that these networks are not in a hurry to cover anything related to Palestine, unless it's negative and damaging to the Palestinians and serves the purposes of Israel. So from my comments, you would conclude that the major networks are biased in favor of Israel. They are pro-Israel. And when they start the conversation with somebody, they're basically acting that they were representing Israel and not being an independent journalistic organization.
Saleh talked about a long interview he did for ABC in November that has still not been used. Dan Hard did a interview with Saleh for Connecticut Insider, a very negative interview. I salvaged one question. He quotes you as saying, Israel is as big a terrorist as anybody else. What did you mean by that?
Well, I meant exactly what I said. Israel practices terrorism, and they do that in the West Bank, and they've been doing it throughout the years of the occupation, the last 56 years or so. I'll just give you one small example of how they terrorize people. The Israeli soldiers in the occupied area, particularly in areas like Jerusalem and Bethlehem and some of the major areas, they receive orders from their superiors to go out and find 2 or 3 homes every night, break down the doors at 2 o'clock in the morning, go inside, turn everything upside down, humiliate the parents, and scare the children out of their mind, and then leave. And they do that without any reason, no suspicion. There's no indication of any of these homes that they were picked for any reason. They are picked randomly. And I'm not making this up myself. This is testimony that former Israeli soldiers are saying to the public.
I heard one of those soldiers, I believe it was New York, and he told the exact same thing. He even wrote a book about it. He might be making this. So
I would consider this as an act of terrorism. Now, another act of terrorism, there be children walk into school in the streets of Hebron or Bethlehem or Jerusalem or Ramallah. An Israeli soldier notices them and stops them and make them, raise their hands, take their shirts or whatever. And if that student just made a wrong move or something, they would shoot them immediately. And, they shoot them and the person is wounded, is on the ground lying, and they prevent anyone from coming to provide aid to them. They block the ambulances from reaching them, and they wait until they bleed to death and they die. Sometimes that's not enough for them. They ended up shooting the person 3-4 times to make sure they're dead. This goes beyond terrorism. This is like sick. I mean, this is people that have no respect for human life. They would kill somebody who's on the ground, who can't hardly move, and they refuse to give them any aid. And what do you call that? I mean, well, what name anybody has for something like this?
And your examples are from the West Bank, and Hamas is not in control there.
There's no Hamas in the West Bank. And today, I saw something from a scene in Gaza where there's a bunch of refugees maybe 30 or 40 of them walking and trying to cross the street from one bombed out section to another. And they were all holding white cloths of paper, white cloths, and they were like waving them. These are the white flags of surrender, or like the peaceful intention. And the first person in the line was a middle-aged woman with a little child in her hand, and she was walking. As she got halfway in the middle of the street, one of the Israeli snipers shot her.
See the complete interview on our YouTube channel, The Struggle Video News. And this, CNN found the average daily number of amputations among children in Gaza since October 7th. There's been 10 a day for over 3 months. Of course, it's U.S.-made bombs that are dropping on top of Gaza. We've mentioned that Senator Bernie Sanders is preparing a resolution that would force discussion of how Israel is illegally using U.S. weapons. He's going to present it in the Senate during the week of January 14. We've been trying to get Senator Murphy of Connecticut to support, even to co-sponsor. Here's his phone number, his D.C. office. If they're not in, they take messages 24/7. Strip the Israeli military's impunity to commit war crimes. Something new worth viewing here and everywhere, the Solidarity Roundtables. Palestinians, Jews, and others in a round table talking about Gaza and Palestine. See it on YouTube and Instagram. That's our program for today. Demonstrations are taking place from coast to coast. Join them. My name is Stanley Heller. You've been watching The Struggle Video News.